Yes. So we'll get started here. My name is Mark Reed, and this is a high-level demonstration of world-class best practices project and portfolio management delivered by Sensei on the Microsoft Cloud. So let me review our agenda just one more time. Actually, we'll get to that in a moment. Let me introduce myself here. So my name is Mark Reed. I'm a principal consultant at Sensei Project Solutions. I have earned my PMP from the Project Management Institute. I also have a couple of certifications in Project and Project Server. I'm currently serving my local PMI chapter as president, and I am based in Carmel, California. So our agenda today, we're going to do a quick welcome, quick overview of Sensei, and then we're going to really do a quick overview of Project Online, what its capabilities are, and then we're going to talk through and demonstrate 6 key use cases for what we call the building blocks of PPM, or those areas where a PMO can really benefit from using a tool such as Project and Project Online. And we do have a question window, so if you go to your meeting control bar and if you have questions, please put those in there. We will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end. Hopefully we can save enough time for that. But if you have questions throughout, please, I will try to answer them the best that I can. So, okay, let's move along here. So just a brief introduction to Sensei Project Solutions. We were 2018 PPM Partner of the Year finalist. We were the only partner in North America to be, and Australia to be chosen as such. One of 4 finalists worldwide. In 2014, we were the winner of that. We've done over 500 PPM deployments. I personally have done over 50 of them, and we've trained over 5,000 project managers, team members. We do feel we have a global impact. We've got clients in 35 different countries across the world, and we've got a physical presence in the United States, Canada, and Australia. And our offering really rests on 4 pillars: services, solutions, training, and apps. So services, we can help with process maturity, with technology guidance, PPM consulting. We've got a customer care function. We also develop solutions, turnkey solutions that you can deploy very quickly in your environment. Our flagship product, which you'll see today mostly, is the Beacon product. That's a subscription product that sits on top of the Project Online environment and allows you to manage very capably all of those building blocks of PPM. We also develop report packs and content packs for Power BI. We've got a Azure Data Mart we call the Reporting Hub that allows us to integrate all sorts of data from the project and the SharePoint worlds that underlie the PPM solution. We also have an integration hub that allows us to do integration packages, bidirectional integration with line of business systems. We've also developed an agile PPM capability, which we'll show you a little bit of. One of the key pillars of rolling out a PPM solution is training. So we've got fully developed courses for project managers, team members, application administrators. We've got books, lots and lots of books. The application administrator guide is over 900 pages. Thankfully, it's also available by download to your smartphone if you wish. We've got project manager books, we've got team member guides, etc. And we've digested some of that content into some e-learning, which means you can offer it to your team members and your project managers on demand. The PPM e-coach for project managers actually runs about 23 PDUs, I think, 21 PDUs. I'm not exactly sure, but it certainly gets you along to your continuing education requirements for PMI. We've also spent a lot of time building applications. We've got a dedicated application development group in Australia, and we've developed the Sensei Time Reporter that allows you to externalize your timesheets out to mobile devices. The Sensei Portfolio Advisor, which I'm going to show you today, that allows you to set up compliance and governance standards for making sure that your data is good. And we've got some other interesting applications available. So what are we going to talk about today? So today we're really going to focus in on the building blocks of PPM. So these are core competencies that PMOs are expected to be able to fulfill and provide these types of tool sets and processes for their constituents, their stakeholders, their team members, their project managers. So project intake and prioritization. That's the funnel, bringing in all of those requests, making sense of them, and agreeing in a transparent way on the priority. Project planning and collaboration, so that's monitoring process through the life cycle. Resource capacity and demand management, understanding what your resources are doing and whether you actually do have the capacity and availability to make sure that you're getting that work done. Project status and portfolio reporting is really understanding the metrics and the ability to quickly gather and display those metrics to your stakeholders. So bringing in detailed project status information, et cetera. Budgeting and cost tracking, being able to drill down to your costs and track whether or not you're on budget or off budget. Very, very central to a lot of PMOs, especially ones in the construction and, aerospace industries and things like that. PMO governance is really around making sure that you're establishing those governance and compliance standards, tracking the quality of the data that is into this thing. So let's figure out what does that really mean. So project intake and prioritization is the ability to capture high-level proposals and run them through a process where you can understand your strategic alignment. Am I aligned with my company's strategic goals? Can you do a cost-benefit analysis? And is there a resource evaluation that can we actually get these things done? So project intake and prioritization is very, very helpful, especially when a PMO is overrun with requests and needs to whittle that down to something that's actually doable. Resource capacity and demand management is really proactively managing and identifying those bottlenecks, that capacity upwelling where you've got more requests or more demand for work than you actually have supply. And organizations that do this tend to really get down to realistic workloads. They get to more accurate forecasts, and that of course translates into more consistent delivery. And that's a big factor. A lot of organizations just cannot bring themselves to be able to manage this data, and we've got a solution for that. So I'm looking forward to talking with you about that. Budgeting and cost tracking is that cost model down below your projects and your resources, really giving you an early warning on what your variances are, and again, providing a little bit more accurate forecast. Organizations, we find, that look at costs proactively, especially down at the labor, the software, the hardware, the training, the travel levels, can really identify what those variances are quickly and take corrective action. So that's very, very helpful. Another piece to this is project planning and collaboration. So standardizing the planning, there's tons and tons of best practices out there from PMI and others. And when an organization provides standard planning and collaboration tools, we find that those teams communicate faster, better, that they have a better handle on scope, and they have, again, more accurate forecasts. So the goal is to understand your milestones, understand your risks, and be able to have your team have very seamless, frictionless access to this information. Project status and portfolio reporting seems to be the bane of existence for many PMOs. They spend hours and hours and hours pulling together status information, and we don't think it should be that hard. We definitely feel like having a set of tools, a set of standard dashboards and reports helps your team, your project managers, your stakeholders to identify those variances, highlight those exceptions, and take corrective action faster. The deal is that bad news doesn't age well, and it's much better to be able to address this early on, quickly and easily with some KPIs. And we can talk more about those KPIs in a bit. Last but not least, PMO governance. It's really around establishing standards for data quality so that you can, have a good quantitative conversation with your project managers about the structures of their plans. You can track compliance. You can improve the quality of your delivery, and having this type of visibility into this level of data, just reduces the amount of overhead that it takes to improve the quality of your PMO processes. So say goodbye to manual checklists, and here's a tool that allows you to have a really nice data-driven conversation about schedule quality, resource quality, management quality. So looking forward to showing you that. So that's the building blocks of PPM. That's what we're going to review for the next hour and 15 minutes or so. We'll try to leave some time at the end for questions. Again, if you do have questions, we do have a question box, so would love to help you take a look at that, and would help. Hopefully you'll put some questions in that we can talk about. All right, quick overview of the PPM solution. Microsoft Project Desktop is not the whole solution. There's actually a database, the Project Server Project Online database, whether you're on premise or on cloud, that makes up this solution. Project Web App is the front end, and really this system was designed to solve the distribution problem for this information. A lot of organizations are working on spreadsheets. Those spreadsheets are disconnected all over the place. They're not a consistent data model, so it's not a really robust solution for distributing this data. You have to worry about file locking and version control and all of that stuff. And the PPM solution has really been architected from the ground up to solve the distribution and synchronization of data from multiple constituencies. And you get some of those use cases that we start talking about with the building blocks of PPM. So if you want to create a proposal and do some workflow approvals, if you want to grab templates and have an enterprise resource pool, if you need to draft schedules separate from publishing schedules, because perhaps you're not ready to publish, when you draft that schedule, you have the ability to do that. And when you publish that schedule, that actually seamlessly distributes those tasks and reports out to your stakeholders, to your team members, to your executives, your resource managers, so that everybody can really be on the same page. And they can also, it's a bidirectional. It's a virtuous cycle of task updates and approvals coming back into the server. So when I submit a task, I'm spent 8 hours on this task, that goes directly back into my schedule after it's been approved. So the project manager is still in the loop, still has the ability to approve those task updates, and these cycles continue and continue. So it's a very nice workflow to be able to move projects forward. And that's really what it's all about. The goal of the project manager is to remove constraints from his team and be able to, his or her team, and be able to, make progress and achieve that project success. So a typical, if we sort of flip this model orthogonally and we start thinking about how this system is built, SharePoint really is the foundation of Project Online. It's been built. We used to kid in the early days. Oh, SharePoint and Project, they're dating. Oh, they're engaged. Oh, now they're married. Well, in fact, the Project Online runs as a service under SharePoint Online. It's a specially provisioned site collection sitting in your Office 365 client if you're in the online world. And what Sensei does is brings those best practices. So the content packs, the 300 years of experience that we bring, and we provision our beacon solution to provide those content packs, those KPIs, those workflows. And then, of course, we work with you to tailor it to your particular configuration. So everything that you see today is customizable. We embed in our solution a lot of best practices from PMI, from Gartner. We've got the project management book of knowledge. We've got the standard for program management, the standard for portfolio management, the practice standard for work breakdown structures, and the practice standard for scheduling. All of those infuse the way that this system handles cost, work, KPIs, variances, all of those metrics that you want to manage as a PMO. The system allows you to do that. And it, is not just about metrics, but it's also about those other data types like issues, risks, change requests, action items. All of those are part of the way that we practice project management, and this is a system that allows us to really make that visible to the organization. So I do want to do a brief introduction to the environment. So I've got a fully configured environment here, and we're going to talk through. I've got lots and lots of tabs open here, so let me go to the front page and let's talk about. So this is Project Online. I'm logged into this environment as myself. I'm an administrator, so I get to see everything. If I was a team member, I would see, just my activities, but I probably wouldn't see much of the strategy section. We've got a project intake section. So this is our beacon product. We've configured it, the top link bar and a quick launch bar for the use of the organization, multiple different roles. So whether I'm a team member, whether I'm a resource manager, whether I'm an executive that's looking at reports, we're going to see all sorts of different pieces to this, and try to make some sense of it. We're not going to be able to go too deep into any one subject. It's a huge application. We only have about an hour and a half or an hour and 10 minutes left, and so we want to just quickly go through this. If you see something that you like and you want to drill into it, please let us know. At the end, if you just remember the email info@senseiprojectsolutions.com, you can send us a question there. We would love to set up a more in-depth demo to explore what are those use cases that you want to do in your PMO, and how can this system give you a jump start or a head start on getting this deployed to your teams? So very big application, lots of functionality. Let's dive in. I just want to do a little bit of understanding of the first area of business, which is project intake and prioritization. And really, what that is taking all of these ideas and starting to whittle down the number of ideas and see which ones really should become projects or proposals. So which ones do we get to the next stage, and then which ones do we choose to act on? And that choice informs the overall priority, the overall fit to the business goals, et cetera, et cetera. So let's go in and take a look at a couple of things. So this project intake piece here, we've got two pieces. One is an idea list. And this is just a SharePoint list. It's, forms to be able to start to gather that information about what are we thinking about? This is a GPS tracking system for rail cars. What's the description? What department? What's the proposed start? Who's the sponsor of this? And let's see what we can make of this. We can do some voting here. Certain organizations will have this list inside of the SharePoint site collection, the project site collection. And the nice thing about that is that we can actually promote that data and create projects. That does require a license, an essentials license, if it's inside of your project site collection. So sometimes people will take that out and put that in a separate site collection for licensing purposes. But it's a way of beginning to gather all of that information and have people start to discuss it. If the request is more formal, if we know what type of project it's going to be, we can come down here to the new proposal piece and choose what enterprise template we use. An enterprise template allows the system to provide you a set of project detail pages or forms to fill out to gather the metadata about a particular project. It also provides a SharePoint template, a collaboration space for the team that's going to be working on this. And we'll take a quick look at that SharePoint site in a little bit. It also provides you with a project plan template so that you can have a project manager start off with a new fresh, but a lot of good knowledge in what how to start off a project, how to approach a project, how to have a project follow your own methodology. So if I click on one of these, it starts to create a project, and this is just bringing up a form that allows me to fill out information about project initiation, project business case. These forms are completely customizable. You don't need any code to write to customize these. These are gathering project level information about a particular project. Now, those projects all get listed up into the project center. All right, this is just a convenient place to go to see the various lists of projects in different phases. So because we can update these with workflows, we can actually take a look at what stage these various projects are in, whether they're in the selection phase, the planning phase, execution, and if we can select any one of these and take a look at what's going on. Now this is a minor project, a small project, and so it's only got a project request form. We didn't gather the the business case information on this because it's below a particular threshold, and we've got a simple workflow associated with it. It goes through a department review, it gets executed, and then it goes through a closure review. That's a small piece, and so certain projects you'll want to have a fairly lightweight way of getting through that. But if I start filling all of these out and I want to start making sense of them, so I've got all of this information in my project center, but I really need to sort of understand, well, how do I make decisions about all of this project information? Well, there's a couple of places that I can go to look at that. One is we have a Power BI dashboard that allows us to evaluate proposals by pulling all of the proposal data together and understanding, from an overview perspective, what is it going to provide me? What is the work that's being requested? What's the proposal cost? What's the benefits, the ROI? If I want to look at a timeline view, I can sort of stack all of these projects and look for overlap in the timeline. The other piece that's interesting is I can look at the role demand. So what are these projects actually requesting for, by role? So if I know I'm sort of down on developers, maybe I want to sort of look at what we're consuming from a role perspective. I want to look at what the projects are demanding in and of themselves for, over time, and be able to understand how that work is trending and forecasting. So this is a quick overview of some of the items that we may want to track and look at while we're trying to make decisions. But one of the things, and here's another business case. This is a little bit more complex. This is actually grabbing proposal costs and benefits, which become a metric by which we can evaluate that portfolio. So there's a whole set of portfolio management tools in here. What it allows us to do is to bring these projects together into a portfolio and understand, okay, if the proposed cost is $8.4 million, and if I have a CFO who doesn't have that kind of money and wants us to try to get this stuff done for $7 million, it really allows us to recalculate on the fly and to be able to assess which projects need to drop out to be able to stay under that budget number and still provide the maximum amount of benefit for the minimum amount of cost. And this is, based upon some very well-known algorithms originally developed for portfolio management at a bank in New York many, many, many years ago. Microsoft bought this and built it into the tool in the 2006-2007 timeframe and has refined it in 2010 and 2013. So this is pretty mature functionality, really allows you to zero in on what what scenario you may want to look at, not just from a cost perspective, but also from a resource perspective. So if you have some resource information in these proposals, one of the huge benefits here is to be able to evaluate whether or not you have the ability to staff this portfolio given what those resource demand is, what that work demand is. And in fact, in this scenario, unless I hire 10 resources, I can not get there. If I look at my baseline, I actually would only be able to achieve about 60% of this without hiring people. And I could go into details about, what is the role demand here, and what kind of roles do we need, and if we look at the various deficits, I'm down from a role perspective because I actually need some infrastructure developers, some DBAs, I need to make some hires. So it allows me to do some hiring scenarios here and to generate some reports. So if you're looking to prioritize your funnel, if you're looking to understand how to deliver the greatest amount of value with the resources that you have, this is really pretty incredible functionality to be able to work on. Okay, that's about all I want to say about intake and prioritization. I do want to talk a little bit about resource capacity and demand management because so much hinges on whether or not we can get that done. If we can get projects, if we have the resource capacity to be able to do them. So let me introduce this topic a little bit. Typically, if you're looking at an ERP system or a traditional timesheet system, you're looking at historical actuals, and that's not really helpful for understanding the future. And in the future, you've got near-term goals and long-term goals that you need to address. So in the long term, you need to plan by role, and you need to, plan by basic percentages. I need this person 50% of the time, this person's 25% of the time. In the near term, you really want to deal with actual specific named individuals in the project schedule and be able to see, what are those tactical items that we need to address really, really quickly to be able to keep the project moving. And you've got a lot of reporting needs at each point in this continuum, whether you're dealing with resource conflicts, across active projects, whether you're looking at approving the resource allocations, and whether you're really tracking your resource demand and bottlenecks. Those are all items that you want to be able to do on this data set. And one of the beautiful things about the Project Online data set, it's been around for decades, and it is a very mature system for capturing actuals, baselines, generics, named individuals, et cetera. So it really helps you to model a lot of use cases, model your own organization's capacity and demand. It also recently was added in the 2016 release, the concept of engagements. What this really is an agreement between the project manager and the resource manager to be able to exchange information in a systematic way and be able to help decide together whether this work is required or not, and how to staff this work. So the project manager can put in a resource engagement request into the system on a generic role in a resource plan on a project. That could go to the resource manager. The resource manager then can respond with an approved resource allocation. So they can say, oh, you need a business analyst? Well, let me select from those business analysts that I have, the people that seem to be available, and let's meet that need. And that's a really, really powerful use case, and it's a powerful agreement between, functions that oftentimes aren't dealing on the same sheet of music, aren't working off of the same piece of data, maybe bickering about, well, you said it was 50% and now it's 100%, and how is that going to work and how long is that going to take? If the organization is working on the same sheet of music, it's very, very helpful to keep this data straight and to be able to recognize where the issues are. So whether they're named individuals in a project schedule, whether you're doing, need to report across those resource conflicts, the approved allocations, the resource demand and bottlenecks, there's a lot of ways to visualize that and to work through it. So let's look at some of those. So first, when you're planning, you want to go through your resource understanding, but you also want to be able to look at some of this data. So let's take a look at the resource center to start off with. So the resource center is a list of your enterprise resources. And you'll note that we have both real named resources as well as generic roles. And the nice thing about that is that you can model planned work where you don't really know who the resource is, and this is for your demand, sort of further out in the world. We want to be able to take a look at some of this information. We do have a dashboard here. Let me actually just zip over to that dashboard from here. You can do resource assignments, capacity planning, and look at resource requests here. But I'm going to go take a quick look at the one of the Power BI reports. Let me go over to the 06 My Resources. So the 06 My Resources is a specialized data model that looks at assignments, looks at engagements, looks at non-project time, and really allows you to zero in on availability. So what do I need? What do I have? And what do I need from a resource perspective? And so we can capture all of this information, render it fairly in a compelling format, and through the magic of the drill through in Power BI, we can look down and look at the resource details, so we can see what projects this person, Johnny Eager, is working on. And it's usually not any one project that's over allocated, but as you put in multiple projects that a person is working on, you can see that they're fine in a single project, but in multiple projects, it really is a problem for them. This person, Johnny Eager, is chronically over allocated through November, and we need to be able to understand, what are they working on, and how do we make decisions to rectify that, this over allocation. So part of this is just being able to see what they're working on. And, we are able to go from the resource to the project all the way down to the task without having to open up individual schedules and be able to see, in March and April, I've got some problems here. I need to have a conversation with the team and with the resource, and perhaps with a resource committee that is deciding between, is this a priority? Do we need to push this off? And organizations that do this well have a political structure as well as the data infrastructure to be able to visualize and decide on making these choices on a biweekly basis, sometimes a monthly basis, but being able to see that information is terribly important. Now, there are some nice tools here to be able to look at some of this information. So there is a third-party plugin from our partner Projectum in Europe to actually be able to do some of this resource allocation and resource engagement work on the website. So this is a plugin from Projectum, and it allows you to take a look at the requests for information and literally to drag people onto this. Oh, you've already got one. There we go. Here's another one. So you can literally just drag the resources on. You can see the resources. You can search for resources and say, I need this person 50% of the time. So I'm going to put this in 0.50, and then being able to drag that across and being able to see that, I'm answering the request for this, the request, the assignment, and the full committing of it, for this role. So this is a very helpful tool. You can do this in Project Professional So in Project Professional, I also have the ability to manage engagements in here, to look at engagements, to put engagements in, add them into the project, and manage their proposed units and max units. But that plugin from Projectum is really nice and brings that use case out to the web rather than putting it into the Project Pro client. But you can do it either way. So if you have any questions about resource management or any of that, please put them in the question window. We have one of the key things around resource management really is visualizing that resource coverage. So first, understanding the list of resources that are working on it, and then second, having some reports and being able to see, for example, in my resources, this is a tab. This is actually an application that Sensei offers called Resource Heat Maps. And what it does is it provides you with a 6-week look ahead of resource availability. So you can make some really tactical decisions here. You can expand people, see what they're working on, where the deficits are, but also understand the coverage, meaning that you've got both assignments and engagements that may be contributing to someone's overallocation. And so being able to look at this information means being able to make a decision on it. And so whether you're rolling out engagements and need to understand the impact of those engagements, or whether you're just looking at regular old assignments and trying to make sense of that, that's an important thing to do. All right. So I want to talk a little bit. That's about all I want to talk about with resource planning. I do want to go into budgeting and cost tracking. So, are the available reports out of the box from Project Online, or are they on the Beacon add-on? Almost all of the reports that I'm showing you are part of the Beacon solution. They are not out of the box. Microsoft is a platform company. They provide incredible tools for building reports, but the project service really comes as a database and a website and some software that connects all of that up together. But really, Sensei's spent a lot of time and effort building their reports. So the Power BI stuff you've seen, that's all stuff that we've built. We have some Excel reports, and that resource engagement piece is also an application that we built. So the only report that Microsoft has distributed is actually, there's a public content pack, which is a subset of the work that we've done. Let me see. I actually have the ability to look at the public content pack. So this you can. Hold on a moment. Let's drill into this. So the Project Online public content pack, you'll see this green header. These you can download from GitHub. You can modify these to your heart's content. So this has a dashboard, portfolio dashboard, timeline. So these you could consider to be out of the box. If you want to download this from Microsoft, this is a free download. So that's about as close as we get to out of the box reports here. That's a great question. Thank you, Nancy. All right, so let's talk a little bit about budgeting and cost tracking. Let me get back to my My other dashboard. So this is part of our Beacon product, and this is, you'll see some design similarities between the public content pack and our content pack. Ours has a lot more functionality in it at this point. That one was developed last year. All right. So budgeting and cost tracking. So there's a couple of ways you address budgeting and cost tracking within the tool. So there's one item that I want to bring to your attention is, so this is Project Professional. And one of the things that Sensei has done is started to develop different views to allow you to start capturing duration, work, dependencies, deadlines, and one of them is cost and planning. And so putting in your budget cost, putting in your cost, looking at this information, not just from a resource perspective, but also from a hardware and software perspective. So if you have software expenses that you want to put into your project, if you've got hardware expenses you want to put in, we have extended the project data model to be able to support different cost types. So if you're looking at labor, if you're looking at hardware, software, if you're looking at travel expenses, you can start to put that information into your schedule, and it flows directly out to your Power BI dashboard. So if you want to look at costs across your portfolio, Power BI is a really nice place to be able to do that. One of the key things here is being able to sort of see all of your costs together and to be able to drill down to your costs. So I can actually expand down and look at what is my rolled up hardware, labor, software, etc. In a given project. So I don't have to make my stakeholders go into the project data in the project plan. We can pull that data up as and make it available to a wider constituency. To consume these reports, you do need a Power BI Pro license. That's $9.99 a month per person. And a lot of people are like, oh, a subscription product. I just can't stand the idea of having to pay monthly for this capability. And when you look at it, and when you look at the time and effort it takes to manually distribute this, I mean, a lot of organizations are outputting these reports into PowerPoint, and then you're talking about it, and they miss the rich, ability to analyze this data and understand their costs by role or by investment category, or understand what's going on with their cost KPIs. And be able to make better sense of this information. From a cost perspective, you really do want to have a place to look at that information and to make some sense of it. The other thing that we've distributed here is, I do want to go to the report center and show you. So we've got a whole set of Excel-based reports that we've been working on. One of them is, just to look at capital versus operating costs. So a lot of organizations are tracking their CapEx, their OpEx, and so we've made it easy to sort of pull this information out into a report and be able to drill in and look at this data by department, by project, by task, and separate out this information. So that's an important part of the process. Okay, if there are any questions on cost or rendering cost information or managing cost information in the system, please pop those questions in there. But I'm going to move on to project planning and collaboration. And so project planning and collaboration is a couple of different things. One is being able to accurately render the work breakdown structure and resource load that work breakdown structure so that you can distribute those tasks out to team members using the built-in timesheets and task sheets. Part of it also is going through, having a collaboration environment where you can actually see, the issues, risks, documents, deliverables, et cetera. And one of the nice things about this is that you can build a data model, you can build an allocation model based upon your requirements for how you want to allocate your people. So if in your enterprise resource pool you decide that people are really only available 80% of the time because they've got 20% of time for holidays and meetings and all sorts of things like that, then the system allows you to distribute that information, project Y, project Z, and then down into the tasks. Each person, each task has a particular size and consumes a certain amount of time and a certain amount of allocation and capacity. Once you lay out those tasks, then the idea is okay, well, how do I let my people know? Am I going to have to constantly rekey this information? Am I going to have to sit through endless meetings saying, what are you doing? Are you doing enough? What percentage of time is that? And are you going to capture that information? Or are you going to build a model that allows you to distribute this information? Because each resource is going to be working on multiple projects. They're going to have multiple tasks and multiple projects. They're going to have administrative time. They're going to have vacation time. And being able to render all of that information on a website or onto a mobile phone with our Time Reporter app, that's a huge distribution problem. I mean, that could consume a project manager who's doing it the old-fashioned way with stone knives and bear skins. They're, busily and not very happily having to transcribe this information time and time and time again. And really, you want to be able to push this directly into a task list for your users. And if you want to go a step further and capture administrative time, you can actually push it into a timesheet to be able to capture that information. Now, this is an undertaking which allows, this is hard to do unless you've got a really good tool for it. So the first thing is in, project where you've got tasks, and you've got tasks that are assigned to various people, and you've got laid out, your predecessors and successors, and you're starting to look at, whether you've got people and you need to do some leveling there. So that's one piece. If I say file publish, then I can push this data out to the Project Online site. And so when I go to the Project Online site and I want to go to my task list, this is customized for me, the user, and this is pushed directly from the schedules out to this task sheet. And I can, drill into these tasks. I can understand who else is working on this task, what the history is, whether there are any issues and risks, whether there's anybody else in the timeline, where I'm, what's related to it. Tasks that need to finish before this task can start, and tasks that are dependent upon this finish date, so I can understand my dependencies, and I can update this information. And I can work top to bottom. Microsoft did a nice job with this UI by just saying, okay, you've got planning windows, and there's certain things you're doing now, and then there's things that you're going to be working on next, and you can, work through that. If you wanted to look at a calendar view, you can certainly do that. I find calendar views to fill up quickly and become unreadable if you have a lot of tasks. And then if you need a timesheet to be able to capture hours and administrative time. It's built into the system, and again, all of this information can be rendered out into the Sensei time reporter on your Android or iOS device. So this really allows you to put in your actual work and your remaining work. Now that's critical. That's kind of the holy grail for, project managers, because project managers have enough data to deal with. And one of the key data sets is, okay, I've estimated this task at 200 hours. Is that the correct estimation? If you finish this in 100 hours, you need to be able to tell me quantitatively that you're done. So you can actually set remaining work to 0 and indicate that it's done, preserving those actuals and making this a really comprehensive tool. Now, work is changing. There's a lot of different methodologies out there, and whether or not you're working in a traditional waterfall process or whether you're working in an agile process or a Kanban or a Scrum process, and if you need to be able to distribute this information and manage your backlog and manage your sprints, one of the key, one of the big items that Microsoft released last year was the ability to manage task boards inside of Microsoft projects. So it allows you to do drag and drop backlog grooming and be able to understand, what maybe needs to roll to a different sprint. Your sprints are, laid out as a separate data entity, so you can move stuff in between sprints pretty easily. This Agile Analyzer is a plugin that Sensei has built to just expose some of this functionality, make it a little bit easier to manage it. The other thing that we've done is we've extended the project data model to support story points, to support epics, and to really take a holistic view of data, not just in the Project Pro client, but all the way out to the server, so that we can do those burn down reports, not just within Power, within Project Professional, but also within Excel and other outlets within the system. So, getting back to other ways of doing things, when you're managing an agile project or you're managing a hybrid project that is taking some traditional methods, some Scrum methods, and putting them all together, it's really just a data set that now this system, it allows you to holistically look at. And so whether you're managing that in Project Professional, whether you're managing it in Visual Studio Team Services or within Jira, you can synchronize that information. VSTS or Azure Boards, as it's becoming, is a synchronization tool that Microsoft has built from the client to the server. Jira, there's a third-party tool to be able to do that, and we really think there's a huge amount of value to be able to bring the best of all possible worlds, bring the enterprise reporting, bring the integrated timesheets, bring the enterprise resource management, and try to pull all of that together in a good platform that is seamless and has connections to all of that information. So instead of managing some things in Excel, some things in Jira, some things in Project, some things, disconnected, we really are an advocate of bringing that data together, integrating it, and making it useful to you. One of the key things that makes it useful is for project statusing and for portfolio reporting. There isn't a PMO on the planet that doesn't have this within their purview. What projects are late? Which projects do we need to fund more? Which projects needs more staff? So project status and portfolio reporting is a key part of the use case for project managers. So So let's look a little bit at some examples of this. A couple of things I want to talk about. One is a project site. So as part of the out of the box functionality of Project Online, you can configure it to create every time you publish a project to create, or if it's already created, it won't create it, but to be able to synchronize a SharePoint site with project data. And the beauty of SharePoint, it's a very popular collaboration tool. What we've done is we've configured that site template to include action items, change requests, deliverables, issues, risks, documents, decisions, deliverables. A lot of the other types of data, the other lists that we want to be able to capture, like what are our issues, what are our risks. I mean, thank heavens for this paradigm in the project management world to be able to understand what's going wrong, what could go wrong, and be able to plan for it. It also allows you to put your latest project status in. And through the miracle of our reporting hub, we have the ability to pull this data together into various dashboards. So if I'm looking at project cost, this data is coming from the schedule. But if I want to look at issues across all of my programs, well, guess what? I can do that. I can have a dashboard where I'm pulling together all of my issues across all of my projects and understand, whether I've got staffing issues with them, whether they're management issues, resource issues, technology issues, vendor issues, and all of these categories can be modified to suit the categories that you want to be able to pull these together. But issues, risks, change requests. I mean, how many times? I'm sure a lot of organizations are managing changes in one system and they're managing issues in a spreadsheet somewhere, and just being able to pull this together to get a complete picture of it is just awesome. We actually have built a new dashboard that allows us to pull all of this data together into a status report. So this is pulling status information, description information, milestones into a 2-page printable status report that's pulling together, my variance information, my issues, my change requests, all together into one piece. And oh, by the way, you can output it to Excel, into PDF. It's a really nice, quick 2-page status report. And that's just a really, really powerful thing. This is built with a Sensei plugin for rendering. This is an RDL. This is a report definition language built in SQL reporting services, but we've got it as a project detail page. So when you go into a project, it's there for any project that you're opening up. And if you need to output it to Excel or PowerPoint or PDF, you can certainly do that. So it's a really, really modern, beautiful thing. The other thing that's important about our reporting hub is we're starting to capture snapshot data. So we're taking weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly snapshots. And so we can look at the trend information of, did this project change over since the last snapshot? And that's built into our reporting hub. And it's just a really, it lessens the reliance on a good baseline strategy and allows you to see the transition of project data over time. And if that's important to you, which it should be, it's a great thing. So, just bringing in those other data types, automating the report, rendering, really makes it so that the organization has an enterprise reporting solution. So you've got all of these project teams managing project A, B, C. They've got timesheets, they've got project sites, they've got schedules they've got to manage. Then you've got project managers who are trying to status all of those and try to keep them all straight. And then you've got executives who need to view these reports and dashboards. And, you know, we find that if these are connected, and on this system they are indeed connected, that the data quality goes up because there's attention being paid to the quality of the metrics, and they are, you know, being able to, you know, view and evaluate this information, you know, makes a huge difference in the early warning on those KPIs, as well as, you know, any corrective action or budgetary changes that need to be made quickly. Now, a system with this much information in it, you know, you do want to do some governance on it. You do want to make sure that your data is good here. So I want to show you. Let's see. We've got some roadmap items. We could certainly talk to you about those, but I want to talk to you about PMO governance and you know, portfolio health. So this is an application that we built that allows you to set standards for compliance and governance. So governance, things like, is the project status date current within X number of days? Has the project been published within X number of days? How many overdue risks or overdue issues are there? Is the issue count exceeding a certain threshold? And you can set the severity of each one of these checks, whether it's a problem, whether it is just a warning, or whether it's just a message, is how it contributes to the overall scorecard. Likewise, with compliance checks, understanding whether your work breakdown structure is well formed, whether your task names meet the minimum amount of words or exceed the maximum amount of words. Tasks with duplicate names, that's important if you're distributing these tasks out to timesheets. Resources, you know, are they well formed? Are they not assigned to milestone tasks or not assigned to summary tasks? How is your schedule? Does a milestone have a duration? Is the task duration longer than X number of days? Is the work estimate excessive? Is the work estimate too small? You know, is this person trying to manage every 15 minutes of a resource and will fail due to the complexity of that? So setting task decomposition guidelines is critical to maintaining the overall quality of this application, including the link structure. And this is something that is very exciting. It actually, you know, we have to go after this in the REST interface to be able to understand the missing predecessors, missing successors, things like that. We can compile that all into a leaderboard, so we can, you know, assess where our project managers are. We've got clients that look at this on a weekly basis and are competing for the top gold cup here. And it allows a PMO manager to be able to drill in, take a look at a particular project, and then assess, have a data-driven conversation with the project manager. Hey, looks like your you know, WBS needs some help here. Here's the tasks that I need you to fix. So it's got the task ID in there, which is very helpful. I notice, you know, according to our baseline policy, we've got some missing baselines. That's something that we want to take a look at. You know, and being able to go through these checks on a consistent basis really improves the ability of the system. Now, this is a server-based product. It comes with our Beacon. It's included in our Beacon solution. There is a plugin to the Project Pro client that allows you to do this on a If I want to look at add-ins, the Sensei schedule analyzer you can add, it opens up a task pane, and you can do some of these checks inside of the Project Pro client. That's available from the Microsoft Store now, and you can take a look at that at your leisure. So that's about all I wanted to cover during this. We could take a look a little bit more on some reports. We do pull together some reports like incomplete work in the past, timesheet compliance. If you're using timesheets, that's very, very helpful. Incomplete work in the past is something that every project manager has to deal with. You want to basically move that data forward so that your project becomes more realistic. You're not assuming that work is going to be completed in the past when in fact that is a logical impossibility. So we've got some reports for that. We have been making some changes in the as Microsoft has been making changes. So we're starting to develop solutions on top of the roadmap. So here is the new roadmap functionality that Microsoft has just released within the last month or so. It's been slowly rolling out to various members. If people are interested in that, and if you have any questions on it, let me know. But this allows you to basically pull together data from different projects. So I actually can add a row to this, and I can connect it to a particular project online or to an Azure board, and this uses Flow. So I can title this I can put my name in here. There I am. And I can connect to a project or to an Azure board. And let me put this in. I want to so then let's see if I didn't get that URL correct. That's right. It's PPM Beacon. Or I could go to Jumpstart. Start. All right, and then I can look for a particular project. And here's a project that I want to connect to. And this really allows you to have a high-level view across multiple projects in a portfolio. Start to pull together, specific data. Come on, you can do that here. So it basically uses Flow to connect from a particular roadmap to a particular project and keep the data, keep it up to date. So the dates, the tasks, the items, the milestones that I put on this roadmap will use Flow to be able to keep that data up to date. So I can create these very high level portfolios with data in multiple plans. So it's a really nice sort of master project type of item. I can also put in row items. I can add my own key dates to it, and I can set a status that is independent of a particular item. So let's see if I have a item in here. So if I wanted to put test infrastructure component here and look at my start date, I can add that. And so that will pop into here, and then I can actually zoom in, I can zoom out, I can filter to a particular date. Say go to date, that's very helpful. So it's a way of pulling together not just milestone information, but other information, and I can essentially, indicate what the status is on this. I can go into the details of that item. Um, it's just a very, very fascinating, wonderful new development on the road to where Microsoft is pushing this data and allows you as a PMO governance body to be able to, manage this information more capably. So this is coming along. And one of the nice things about this is you can set the status as independent, and you can report on the status. So we actually have a roadmap dashboard in our content pack. So we can go in and take a look at a roadmap. We can toggle between key dates in a particular or down to items. And do some reporting on what those items are. We can also link to those items directly from our roadmap report. And so there's, it's coming. I think this is the most exciting development that Microsoft has added to the project world for years and years and years and years. So, I've been working on this since full time since 1995, and I think this is the most significant, investment that Microsoft has made coming along. So it's very exciting. All right. So let's just recap what we've seen so far. We've seen project intake and prioritization, so understanding the demand that's coming, maybe doing some portfolio analysis, some resource analysis on that so that we can see everything that's coming into the organization. Project planning and collaboration, so understanding our action items, our issues, our risks, our deadlines inside of the schedule as well as on the SharePoint site. Being able to do resource capacity and demand management, not only seeing our capacity by role or by team, but also distributing that information out to those team members and allowing them to have a way to respond to that information and tell us what their remaining work is, what their percent complete is, et cetera. We saw a lot of project statusing. We saw a really nice RDL report as well as the Power BI dashboard. So very quickly being able to get that information out to our stakeholders, be able to make decisions on that data, whether you're a resource manager, whether you're a portfolio manager, a project manager. Budgeting and cost tracking, so being able to segment that data out into OPEX, CAPEX, hardware, labor, all of those costs, and being able to see that up on the dashboards. That's a really, really helpful another layer that takes you to another step in the maturity curve. And then PMO governance, sort of wrapping it all up and saying, are we putting in quality data into the system? So that those are really the sort of building blocks of PPM. I hope that this demonstration has provided you with a very broad, not terribly deep, but a very broad overview of the functionality of this platform. And I would encourage you to have some questions. So if you're interested in other pieces of this, be happy to show you that. We've got about 12 or 13 minutes left. So would love to be able to, talk more about your various questions. And if you, want to take the next step and drill down on a specific piece of functionality, we can arrange a in-person, a live demo with you where you can direct us to what you want to see, and we can start talking to you about, your specific use cases. What would be valuable to your PMO, to your project managers, as they embark on the journey of getting better and better at doing this. One of the things that we are often asked is, what does it take to deploy this? And we've really productized our Beacon solution. We can roll it out in less than 3 weeks. We like to give ourselves about 3 weeks for that. And so if you're interested in thinking about this tool, let's do a demo. Let's have a scoping session. Let's talk about what makes sense for you. And then this process of deploying the reference configuration, we call it our jumpstart configuration because it provides all of this configuration up front. A lot of organizations will spend months and months and months and months gathering requirements for this when they could have a fully thought out, fully documented reference configuration in 3 weeks or less. That's why we call it Jumpstart, because it gets you going really, really quickly. At that point, then, you can focus on what are the deltas between your process and our reference configuration. How do we make that custom configuration? A lot of organizations have process maturity issues that they need to work through. And so taking the time to understand, hey, you know what? I'm not going to roll out timesheets right away. I'm not going to roll out task sheets. I'm going to roll this out to my project managers first. They're going to get on the system. They're going to refine their work. We're going to work with them in the portfolio advisor so that they understand how their project maps to the corporate priorities and how their project can be improved to a point at which I'm ready to share that information out to the team members, to the stakeholders, to the executives. And so that process maturity is a key step. We offer a lot of classes, application admin, open enrollment class, a project manager class. This is one of our most popular offerings. We really recommend that you do it in person. It's a 3-day class working with the project managers on the basics of scheduling and managing projects, especially for people who are used to Excel. It's very helpful to have a defined curriculum. We have a series of books. We've got the admin book. We've also got the proactive PPM book. Those are both available for download, available from Amazon. You can buy them from us. And it's that training which we find to be a really, really worthwhile investment for your team members, your resource managers, your project managers. If you've got report authors that want to build these reports themselves, we certainly, we've got a 2-day course for report authors to work with them through the process of building out things in Power BI or Excel or SQL reporting services, depending upon what your platform of choice is. And usually, integration is a second or a third phase. If you're going to integrate this with an ERP system or another repository of information somewhere, that certainly can be done too. So we've got about 9 minutes left or 8 minutes left here. If you have any questions, would love to answer those. Would love to talk about any particular subject that you're interested in. If you know of your questions, that would be great. If you don't know your questions now but want to ask us a question later, or if you want to reach out to us and schedule your own personalized demonstration, focusing in on the use cases that you need to implement, we'd be happy to do that. You can write us a note at info@senseiprojectsolutions.com. So we'd love to understand more about what you're doing and how we can help you be successful in this space. It is a big, it's a big undertaking. There are a lot of considerations as you move forward. You want to work with a partner that's recognized by Microsoft. You want to work with a partner that's done this before to really help you through the landmines. I mean, I've seen my share of implementations be successful, and would really like to help you be successful with this platform. That's our real goal. So if there are any more questions, pop them in the question box. Um, Otherwise, I want to say thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your day. Thank you for taking time again. For some of you coming back, and hope this was useful. Hope it was helpful to you to understand more about this platform, learn more about the benefit of this platform, and we'd be happy to talk with you about how to make this work in your environment. Any more questions? Okay. Well, totally appreciate your time. We'll give you back 6 minutes in your day, and appreciate your taking the time to spend with us. And please reach out to us, info@senseiprojectsolutions.com, if you've got any further questions. Thanks very much for your time.